Here at South Florida Integrative Health Center, and today's discussion is about prevention. It is so important to be preventative and to be proactive with your health. Quite often in mainstream medicine, they are looking for disease and diagnoses so they can really look for a medication to give, and that's how it works. That's why the reference ranges. If you're waiting till you get out of the reference range, you're waiting too long. So, part of preventative medicine is looking at optimal numbers for each unique individual in the range, but at an optimal number, because that is how you can pick up on things ahead of time. So, some of the most important things to pick up on, and this is what we're doing here at South Florida Integrative Health Center, we have strongly seen and we have always believed that we can use lifestyle, we can use food as medicine. And if we improve lifestyle habits, we use food as medicine, and at times targeted nutrients, depending on what each unique person needs, then we can reach optimal levels of health and be very preventative for these chronic diseases such as heart disease, diabetes, stroke, and Alzheimer's. So, what are these underlying causes of aging that we really work on and help people to optimize? Well, there is a process called methylation that is so important for not only our neurotransmitters, our mood, anxiety, for example, and depression, but as well on how we break down estrogens and hormones. So, methylation is a process that's also important for the turnover of our DNA in our cells. So, this process uses certain vitamins, nutrients, amino acids, and we look to optimize this process in the body because when this process is off, certain lab markers become elevated, such as homocysteine, and that becomes inflammatory. It's inflammatory for the endothelial lining. That's the lining of our arteries. And when that begins to become inflamed and irritated, that is the beginning of hardening of the arteries. What beginning of when those arteries become obstructed is inflammation and oxidation. So one of the first and foremost things we work on helping people is methylation, getting that optimized. You don't want too low or too high. Many processes in the body need to be perfectly balanced, not either too low or too high. That goes with vitamins and nutrients as well. And that is something that we work on very hard here, is optimizing vitamin, nutrient, amino acid, mineral levels. It's not getting them too high, not taking them indefinitely, but taking them targeted individually, what a person needs biochemically. Their uniqueness is how we target these nutrients, these vitamins and minerals and amino acids. And they're very important in coenzymes. For example, uric acid, it can become elevated if certain nutrients are lacking, like molybdenum. And we want to look at improving uric acid because that could become inflammatory. And again, if you're just looking at the range, gout begins at, let's say, 8 on the uric acid scale. But when you pick up much earlier levels of elevation, when we're looking at optimal numbers, that is how we prevent these diseases from occurring. And we can use lifestyle. There are certain lifestyle elements, certain foods, certain ways of eating that increase uric acid, that increase homocysteine. And we work on, if they're elevated for that unique person, we work on lowering that. The other processes are insulin resistance and cortisol levels that are high, because that is the beginning stages of metabolic syndrome or moving on to diabetes. And what's so important is to pick up that early. We can be 10 years in the research. It's showing that if you use the right lab testing, like for example, fasting insulin instead of just a glucose, just an A1C, if you're looking at the dynamics with insulin and cortisol and blood sugar, then we can pick up on the issues that are becoming a problem way ahead. The average is about 10 years ahead if we really do the right testing to pick up on insulin resistance and not wait for pre-diabetes or diabetes. That's very, very important. It is also important to understand the liver detoxification systems and to know how to really improve them. There are 3 phases of liver detoxification. Phase 1 takes the toxins hormones and makes them more water soluble, and that requires certain nutrients. Many of them are phytochemicals, plant-based nutrients. Then it converts it to phase two. Now, phase two is somewhat safer, it's more water soluble, but still needs nutrients and amino acids and vitamins to help the body to remove these toxins. In between phase one and phase two, there can be these very problematic intermediate toxins. So you really want to get phase one, phase two, and phase three, which is elimination. It's working with the liver, gallbladder, and intestines, the gut, to eliminate these toxins and excessive estrogens. And this is where the gut comes into play. We use extensive advanced gut microbiome testing, not the standard testing that's done in conventional medicine, looking for pathology, looking for parasites in cultures. We use DNA PCR technology that we can quantify the amounts that these parasites, yeast, H. pylori, or even commensurate, these so-called neutral bacteria, that when they're overgrown, they become inflammatory and they can stimulate at times our immune system to not recognize itself. And so our immune system is on overdrive, and that's not a good thing. So we don't want these overgrowths of these bacteria that are normally in our gut. So they're not being tested for on most stool tests, but we test for them, and we use DNA PCR technology to make sure that we're getting those bacteria that are overgrown, so we can work at more natural ways to lower that intestinal overgrowth. We also want to make sure those keystone species, the very beneficial bacteria that produce these very important nutrients like butyrate, are there in sufficient robust amounts. And we need the DNA PCR technology on a stool test to really see that it's not just lactobacillus or bifidus that are typically found in most probiotics. It's going to be a much more diverse, good bacteria that are known as keystone species, because we're finding in the research that they are beneficial. They produce metabolites that heal the gut. They're called, one of them is called butyrate. It also affects the brain. There's a gut-brain connection. That gut-brain connection is very, very important to optimize if you really want brain health. And talking about brain health, we're talking about improving these nutrients that's very important for brain health. Some of them are phospholipids because they're really important for the cell membrane, which is usually a fatty layer. So they are called phospholipids, very important for communication between the cells, for our hormones, and for our neurons in our brain. So this is really some of the most important ways to be preventative. And that is why integrative medicine really is at the forefront in helping people combat these chronic diseases that are insidious. They build up over the years. If you're only waiting for those reference ranges, for those numbers to become over those reference ranges, well, then you're waiting too long. So be preventative, be proactive. Reach out to us at South Florida Integrative Health Center. Our website is there on the screen. You can check out our website and make an appointment there, even a 15-minute discovery call to see how we can help you, and reach out to us. Leave a message below, direct message, and we'll get back to you. We're happy to help. We're here to help and bring the message of integrative medicine to the people and help people with these chronic diseases. Everyone have a healthy, happy day.